encourage people to dream big, and then, get there to do effective planning and execution.
How does someone who, again, doesn't really know what they're doing tomorrow, can't remember what they did an hour ago?
Your positive growth mindset will allow you to take a negative or bad situation and change it in your mind.
How do they plan for 5 years? Do they think a year first, or do you automatically go to the year 5 and then work backwards?
Think of your big goals and dreams, your summits out there, these mountain peaks that you want to climb to.
Hey, welcome to the Relevant Development Podcast. I am your host, Juan Alvarado. Today's guest is Aliki Simone. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Some good conversation to have.
Yes. So, Aliki, you have a pretty interesting and cool background. Can you let our listeners know who you are and where you're calling from today?
Absolutely. Well, I'm calling here today from Illinois, but I didn't always live in Illinois. I actually come mostly from California and Nevada. Let's dive into actually, what I've done and kind of why I'm talking to you all. So I am the author and best cover award-winning bestseller of Conquer Your Summit: How to Build a 5-Year Plan and Live Your Best Life, with accompanying companion workbooks to go with it. And that came from my long, 10-year plus career where I went from an aerospace engineer out of college to becoming vice president of program management for a startup. And before I left that industry, this is what allowed me to understand the intricacies of making effective plans in complex situations and how I could then put that into my life, and then how I could build 5-year plans and work with others. Then from there, the summit method really took me to new levels where once I left that industry, I started to build, businesses and become an entrepreneur and expand in my passions of art and music. One case example, going from, never thinking I would own a home to now owning 10 plus rental properties and building my own real estate investment group with my husband over the last, only 2 or 3 years or so. So these have been really exciting dreams and accomplishments that have built up who I am, why I'm talking to you, and led to building the summit method and writing a book about how I could then help change other people's lives, dream big, encourage people to dream big, and then, get there to do effective planning and execution.
Do you find that this has always been a part of you? Like, I understand you wrote the book and probably went through a whole bunch of things to get to writing the content behind, the summit and the different points. And, we can get into that in a second. But to do the schooling that you've done and the education that you've done and have those jobs, like, that's a pretty big deal. Can you look back over time and be like, this has kind of always been me, 6 years old and wanted to be an astronaut or, whatever?
Sure. Yeah. It's really interesting because I find that a lot of people like myself, I just talked about a bunch of things that I've done, with my life and why I'm talking to you, but we all come from that place of pain or, a different part of our life that we're trying to either, maybe pain's not the right word, but hopefully it's not a source of pain, but, we all come from somewhere where we're not where we want to be, basically. And, when I was a child and growing up, it was always music and art, but I loved science. And there's this competing, story in my mind. And yeah, then that led to me deciding, you know what, I really want to build a career and go towards aerospace. I love the stars. I want to build spacecraft. Let's go design things. And along the way, started dealing with some of those. What am I doing with my life? Or how, why do what I'm doing? Why am I, trying to chase a ladder in my career? What am I doing to make friends and build strong relationships, to build family? How am I, feeding and working with the community? And all these, as you mature and age, these ideas start flowing. And maybe not for everyone, but for myself, I came from, I want to be in art and music, to becoming someone who I want to do everything. How do I choose what I want to do? And how do I be successful in doing the things that I choose? And that led more into hey, I need a plan to get there. I need a method to do that. I didn't always think I was going to be an author. I never thought I was going to be an author. I just thought I would go to industry and work for 40 years and sit in a cube and, I don't know, punch numbers. But yeah, yeah.
So in doing that, that's really hard. I mean, how old were you at the time where it started to hit like, what am I doing? Why am I doing? Is this what I want to do? Could you recall what age you were?
Yeah, for sure. My spiral that started for me I was probably around the age of 23, so early 20s for me. There was that right out of college, everyone's
Right.
starry-eyed. They start comparing themselves to either their coworkers or other people they see. I was someone who became like the young professional that went to the corporate life. Obviously, it's, definitely different depending on what trajectory you go on. You realize that your whole life you're told, well, not everyone, but most people get this, go to school and graduate high
Right.
school and, go get a job, whether that means go to college and get a job or go get a job. But, I just don't think parents, we don't, I am not a parent, but we don't like help with the next phase. What happens when you get to that point? I got a job. Now what?
Right.
And so that was my beginning of my spiral in what am I doing with life? And I think a lot of youth today struggle with that, especially with, things like social media with so many, newfound knowledge that you get to look at the whole world. I didn't have that, when I was 23.
Right.
So that's where it started for me, is that youth out of initial job.
Yeah, I would think that even as we move on in time in social media, that it's going to get tougher for kids to figure out what the heck they want to do because you use the word comparing, right? And so I think a lot of people see on social media like, oh, I want to do like I work with a lot of youth, and one of the top five things that kids wanted to be was doctor, nurse, firefighter, police officer, professional, whatever player, and like trying to think what teacher. Did I say teacher already? But yeah, teacher. So police officer, firefighter, doctor, nurse, professional, whatever. Yeah, and teacher. And now it's changed. Teachers, it has dropped a lot on that list, but we've added influencer and YouTuber, gamer. Right. There's little to no doctors. I mean, sometimes in there you get like engineer and things like that. But the more that our kids see that stuff, or youth, going into college or coming out of college, see all these different people doing things and majors coming out of nowhere, right? That are weird majors. Like, that's a major? Like, what the heck? And then
Yeah.
and then, the pressures of parents saying like, or society saying you need to get a 9 to 5, right? And being an entrepreneur goes against that, right? Because of the safety net in go to work, get a 9 to 5, get your automatic paycheck every month or every 2 weeks, and get your 401k and benefits and all, and it looks nice, so let's stay in that lane. So it's really hard for people to understand the entrepreneurial life, because you don't get a lot of that stuff. But the reason why I was asking about the age was because I think every one of us go through that. I think I made the joke not too long ago with a buddy of mine that said, like, stop asking your kids what they want to be when they grow up, because when you go to college, people change their major like 4, 5, 6 times. And like, if they don't know what they're doing as adults, then why are we asking our kids what to figure that stuff out? But it goes into, your planning and things like that. But one of the things that kind of got me to think a little bit was, I mean, the jobs that you've had, the things that you've done. And when you talk about a 5-year plan, it just seems like you've always had this thought process. What do you tell somebody that's like, man, I don't even know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. You want me to create a 5-year plan? Like, what the heck? So how do you address that? And can you get your shell of like kind of get into that? Like, how would you create a 5-year plan? But hey, you don't have to. If you want to think shorter term, you just got to get the same framework and, make
Sure,
it smaller.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you hit it spot on. How many of us have heard, what's the point of a 5-year plan? Or how many of us have actually done it, right?
Right.
It's not very common, but it is something yet we all know. I mean, if you talk to someone about a 5-year plan, I know what a 5-year plan is. Haven't done it myself, but I know what it is. So it's a really good question. So my answer to that is plans create focus, right? And focus is what brings you to the highest likelihood of success in meeting a given goal or a dream or a plan. And so by creating a 5-year plan, you're setting yourself up for looking focused into your future, right? You're saying, I know roughly what today looks like. Some of us maybe don't know what today looks like. Some of us don't remember what we had for breakfast. Like, I'm with you. But if you give yourself some time and you put a framework around it, maybe, I go through very dedicated questions and templates to kind of help guide your mind to think future focus. what is your life 5 years from now? I mean, take your age and +5 and say, wow, 5 years from now, I'll be whatever age. Suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be that age. And these thoughts start flowing about, well, wait a second. I always thought I would be X, Y, and Z before I was, that age, or before I was nearing, whatever age. Cause I mean, for whatever reason, our society is there's so much focus around these milestones of age. So I use that as an example, but plans create focus. You need to look forward 5 years and say, what does that roughly look like? What's our big goals or the big things that I want to work towards in the next 5 years? The reason why this matters is I'll give a very short analogy before we jump into kind of my method for 5-year planning and how it's not just 5 years. It's also kind of a 2-year action plan and some quarterly goals. But when you get in the car, you are planning, whether you realize it or not. You're jumping in, you're going to drive out of town to see relatives. Maybe you've done this drive 1,000 times and you don't need to put it in, Apple or Google Maps. You just go. But likely, if it's not something that it's not, going to grandma's house, I've got to drive to some unknown city, you're going to put it in. You're going to make a plan.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, I challenge you, leave your house, get in your car and say, okay, drive to someplace 4 hours from your house. Go.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
can't use a map, right? There is umpteen amount of ways that you could get to that place, right? Including backtracking because you're just trying to be like, I think it's in this direction. And that's not efficient. It goes to plans create focus. By creating a plan, you create focus on getting to where you want to go. You're going to get in the car, you're going to run your maps, and you're going to go there in the most efficient path. Maybe you make some stops for gas along the way and you change your plan, of course. But plans create focus. And that's why we preach, please try to think about what you want to do. And let's look at it with a frame of a 5-year plan initially.
There are going to be some people that might say, like you said, like, I don't even know what I did for breakfast, of what I had for breakfast. How does one plan 5 years? Because I think you have some people. So being a Gallup Strengths Find Your Coach, you have people who are relationship building, you have people who are influencing, you have people who are executing and strategic thinking. And so there's going to be those strategic thinkers that do that. They can plan out, right? You have the executors who can probably do that. But then you have like the people who are involved in influencing or relationship building, and they'd be like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would want to go to school here or work here because then I have to take my wife or my kids or whatever. And then we have to relocate. And they're thinking about the relationship and not the plan. So how does one focus? I mean, you hear people talking about like have the end in mind and work your way backwards. And you start talking about, there's a couple different frameworks that you utilize. How does someone who, again, doesn't really know what they're doing tomorrow, can't remember what they did an hour ago, how do they plan for 5 years? Do they think a year first, or do you automatically go to the year 5 and then work backwards?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, to ease anyone's worries, if you check out the book, we go through all of the steps, step-by-step method to help exactly that. Those who have no idea where to start, what are methods in which you can get through this? So let me go over a couple of them. First of all, I like to describe planning as a sandwich. Visually, you've got pieces of bread. The bottom bread is your current state. The top bread is your, this 5-year, the 5th year in this plan. A sandwich is not, bread is delicious, but usually you need some ingredients in there, right? And that's the key. It's not actually the bread. Hey, if you're, gluten-free, then you're going to be wrapping that sandwich in lettuce or something like that anyway. So it's the ingredients inside.
Right.
Of course, I put a framework to say we're looking at a 5-year plan and that's how it's, advertised and whatnot. But my preaching that I would say in this podcast is it's all about the steps in between. It's about the ingredients. So I go through a method of mind maps. I don't know if you or the listeners out there have done a mind map. It's pretty simple. You have a blank sheet of paper. You put a prompt in the center. You set yourself a 5-minute timer, and you let your mind open up. You don't think about anyone else. They're not going to read this paper. It's just you. You could burn it. You could throw it in the trash afterwards. It's just you. Let your mind be open and free and answer the prompt for 5 minutes. See what you come up with, right? So I go through specific questions to help the reader through what should I be thinking about in order to get to that, top bread, that 5-year goals, and then say, okay, these are 5 or 6 dedicated themes or dreams I want to work towards. Now come up with your 3 to 5 step plan. If you wanted to lose, I feel like everyone always uses the like lose weight analogy.
Yeah, I always do that, so you're okay. You're okay. The listeners are
But
gonna be like, "We get it. We got it."
yeah. So you want to lose weight. Well, it's hard. I mean, you're just like, "Oh, I mean, I gotta work on, I gotta go to the gym, or I gotta work on my, what I eat." I mean, there's 1,000 different ways to go about losing weight. So stop that spiral and just say, well, what are a couple steps to get there? Because if one of your thought processes is to, I got to go to the gym and do this workout plan, well, your first step is signing up for the gym, right?
Right.
So it's take that scary, ominous 5-year plan and just break it up into these bite-sized, delicious ingredients for your planning session, or sandwich. And you start seeing how they flow. And those ingredients are each year. So if I had a goal so I'm a musician, right? And I'm trying to release my album currently. I'm recording it and it takes a really long time. So that 5-year plan goal for me is record and release my album. Maybe I'll do it sooner than 5 years, or maybe it'll take 5 years. What do I want to say I'm going to do each year? First year, let me get all the songs together and make sure they're all well written and happy. Second year, I'm going to find a recording studio and, start and lay down 5 tracks. The second year, I'm going to lay down, or the third year, I'm going to lay down 5 more tracks. And I start piecing it up. So it's in bite-sized chunks to see how I'm getting to that one goal. That's what I talk about. But I frame it with, you need to look at your current state so you can compare your now, and then do mind maps to grow to where you want to be. What does that ideal life look like? Around 4 areas of success. You're going to
Mhm.
focus your mind on personal growth. So that's things like travel and health and, spirituality and whatever, personally drives you. Then you're going to look at finances, because the world revolves around money. Unfortunately,
Right.
that's how things work.
Yeah.
Finances will inevitably lead to a conversation about your career. Career is not 9 to 5, fancy, skirt woman in the office. A career is what you do for money that feeds into your finances. You could be in gig economy, you could have multiple jobs, you could, be the corporate worker, you can be an influencer or a gamer. I love crazy.
Yeah.
But your career, that's like a lot of your time, your personal finances and career. And what brings everything together is the community that we surround ourselves with. Our family, our friends, external community members. That's, are you, in churches, in volunteer organizations, how you interface with the community, right?
Right.
You look at all 4 of those areas of success to help your mind focus on, what are my goals around personal growth? What are my goals around finances? What are my goals in career? And what are my goals specifically about people? And that's the 5-year plan look. Of course, I'll close this sentence topic on, I believe that 5-year planning can be very big and ambiguous, and I don't know what, this big fuzzy 5-year plan. So I make sure that everybody does a 2-year action plan. Now you're going to look at each month and say, okay, maybe 5 years was too far out, or I could only put some big goals that are going to motivate me and drive me for the future. But I need to look at the next 2 years. And in
Mm.
fact, after I look at that 2-year action plan, which I break up by month and looking at those 4 areas of success, I need to actually look at quarterly goals, because, sorry, I don't want to like burst anyone's bubbles, but New Year's resolutions are, some people do great with them, but a lot of people jump into it and then, a week to a month later, it's out the door.
Yeah, I think it's like 28 days or something like that, it goes
Yeah.
away.
And the reason I believe for that is, that accountability, that pushing factor. If you have a whole year to do something, it's very easy to say, okay, yeah, we're going to get to it. I got a whole year to get to it, which is why I don't say 5-year plan, 2-year action plan, and 1-year goals. It's quarterly goals. I want
Mm.
everyone to be more focused on a plan for your year in the course of 3 months. What are you doing in the next 3 months to get yourself towards, your goals?
And those 3 months come by quick. I mean, just the other
Yes.
day, I was like, "Man, we're out of summer days," right? We have a pool in the backyard, and it's like, "Man, we don't I thought we can get 1 or 2 more days in," and it got cold really quick, and then it's like, "Christmas is here.
Yeah.
What the heck?"
Right.
And so those 3 months are gonna come, they're gonna, catch up to you really quick, and so, yeah, those small actionable goals, 'cause yeah, going back to the whole weight thing, I think a lot of people fail because they think of the weight, right? Like, 5 years is so long, or 20 pounds or 10 pounds is so far away, and they get discouraged because in 1 or 2 weeks they've lost 1 pound. Well, it's like, yeah, if that is your, 9 month goal or 1 year goal to lose so many, yeah, it's about a pound and a half every week and a half, 2 weeks. Like that's common, but people want it really quick, and then it's quick, lose weight really quick and all these fad things. And yeah, it gets crazy. But when you say, hey, I'm just going to do this one thing today or these two things today, which are going to equal up to my quarterly goal in those bite-sized pieces, it's a lot more obtainable because they can see the first finish line of many finish lines as opposed to something that's a year out or 5 years out. And I love that. Quick question: why the summit? Why that? With your background, right, you can think about like, oh, the airplane or the taking off and landing and stuff. Why the summit?
I love this. Okay. The summit, because a summit is both described like the word itself, right? It can be described as a peak, like a mountain peak, like the
Hmm.
summit, I'm going to summit a mountain. And a mountain, I mean, there's not a lot of people out there going, mountaineers summiting mountains, right? And so I like to equate that with, think of your big goals and dreams, your summits out there, these mountain peaks that you want to climb to, put that flag on top and say, yes, I did this. I have reached this goal. And then you get to that mountain peak only to see what more mountain peaks around you,
Yeah.
more, places and things to go conquer and, continue. But a summit can also be described as a meeting of people, right? To
Mm,
come together and make decisions.
makes
And
sense.
so, yeah, I have this summit event where you are planning for conquering, these big mountains in life. And you're looking to make big decisions on what you're doing. And we haven't really talked about it yet, but a big part of the book is also about, accountability partners and how you
Mm,
do this, with other people, which
right.
might be a little different from some planning exercises. But we actually encourage, like, if you have a spouse or, a best friend or other members of your family, to actually do your summit event together. It allows
Mm,
you to become closer and better understand your, potentially differing life goals and dreams, which is a good thing to understand. Now you know how you can better support each other to
right.
move forward in conquering that summit. And I'll leave you with, I am an outdoor enthusiast. I have a camper van named Anna the Vanna. And
That is awesome.
yes, yes. We travel around and love hiking through national parks, kayaking, exploring nature. I find the most serene part of my clarity and planning in nature. And I wanted to bring that into this book.
Mm,
I am not as big on kind of like the corporate minded jargon business books that are about planning, that I just need something with a little more life. I'm all
right.
about vibrance. So the book actually has themes and is built around climbing a mountain. So you're actually going to pack a backpack and go,
Mm,
hike to base
cool.
camp. And you're going to climb these different mountains. So the summit has so many different important, intricate pieces that bring it all together as climbing to your dreams, meeting with others to make sure that you're going to have success, and having some beautiful imagery to go along with it to make it fun.
That's really cool. And when you say that to bring it all together, there's a workbook which I love because you can read a lot of stuff and maybe take your own notes or highlight and make little side notes on the pages, or maybe somebody has a journal and they're journaling, whatever, if they're that organized. But to have a workbook to be able to work through what you've read and be able to read the chicken scratches that you would have done on the side of a book,
Sure,
you have
sure.
you
Yeah.
have a companion book, right? This workbook that helps us along the way. What kind of was going through your process in, like, why would you need a work? I mean, I know why I would want a workbook, but not everybody does that. I love that you have
Absolutely.
that. What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, well, the the book, the original book, not the workbook, is actually written in a way where every chapter it has things to do next, like must do these tasks before moving on kind of
Oh, okay.
methodology. It's meant to be prescriptive, it's
Yeah.
meant to say do this, then that. Here's a template that you're going to get, online that you can grab and download down. And through the book we talk about how you need a notebook. You need to actually be a place to do all these mind maps, a place to start recording your why, recording what your quarterly goals are, how you're going to do your execution habits, what's your vision board look like. And I build that all in a notebook. I say, go out today, buy a notebook and have it next to you while you're either listening to this book, because audiobook to come out soon,
There you go.
or, read the book. And I said, I'd like to release a companion workbook that if someone wanted to grab that, it would align with every chapter, and
Right.
you don't have to try to create from a blank slate in a notebook. But that's kind of where it came from. It's meant to be something you follow. For all the people out there who are spiraling, don't know what to do with their life, and just want something that they can holistically be down to earth but follow a process, that's the goal, to help,
Could we
change lives in that way.
could we use this 5-year plan? Let's say I'm like, no, too far ahead. Can't do it. Sorry. Not gonna do it. However, I want to plan, a wedding, or I'm gonna have a baby in 9 months. Can I use the same framework and utilize the notebook and do everything in a shorter amount of time? Like, could I do even with like, again, hey, going back to the whole weight loss thing, but I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle or 10 pounds of muscle in the next 6 to 9 months. Could I then still utilize your framework and the notebook for those people who say, look, 5 years is just too long? Like, can I use it for something shorter?
Sure, sure. It's a great question. And what I would say to that is, first of all, yes, you can. Second of all, it's a 5-year plan. And I think a lot of people think, man, that's really far away. And what if I change my mind? I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I want to stamp home that the whole point of doing a plan, 5-year plan, 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, again, is that you chose to take the time to give yourself the mental space to think and provide focus for your life. And
Yeah.
100% you could use the framework to say, all right, what's the next year of my life look like? The main, I would say, the takeaway I would give to you and the listeners is that it's about looking at the 4 areas of success: personal growth, finances, career, and community, and framing what the planning needs to look like in those 4 areas. Whether it's, I mean, you brought up a wedding. I'm planning a wedding. Okay, well, what personal growth things do I need to think about for that? Well, I want to fit in this dress, and I want to travel this one place for my honeymoon. Okay, what other personal growth items? I need to learn more about, how to plan a wedding. Finances. Well, you got to figure out your finances in order to plan a wedding. Career wise, how is that going to affect my job? Am I going to be taking a couple of weeks off? And these are all very, very pointed, very specific
Yeah.
planning items just for a wedding. But then you got to look at that community. You're literally planning a wedding for a whole community and all the
Yeah.
intricacies of how that affects. So it's really just saying, look at time in the distance, create goals for yourself to give yourself motivation, center around the 4 areas of success, and detail out in the best way possible some micro steps to get there.
Yeah, very cool. You said something about getting, what was the word that you used, like to get prepared in the right mental state. I know that we've talked a little offline about using mental and planning tools to build the better life or the better plan. What are those? What are mental and planning tools?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the book, it has 3 phases, which is mental tools, planning techniques, and execution habits. And I
Mm.
say that because I want you to note that number 1 is mental tools. It's not make a plan and then figure out your mental tools. It's mental tools. And I go over that you need to take time to find your why, to look at your purpose, because your
Mm.
purpose is what's going to drive you and motivate you when times get tough. I mean, I feel like a theme we've had on this call is, hey, making a 5-year plan is tough, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
for sure.
there's gonna be some tough parts. You need that mental space to say, "What am I focused on? What is my purpose?" So 1, you need to build that up. That's part of the mental tools. 2, I talk about a positive growth mindset. This
Mm.
one I think is so important because I think we live in a society where we have a lot of fixed mindset people who don't even realize their fixed mindset. I have led most of my life in a fixed mindset where that basically means that you don't have all of the mental clarity to be open-minded about everything and to look at growth as the number 1 opportunity. I would definitely was someone who I never wanted to fail. I want to be perfect at everything. How could I, do it all? And that doesn't allow you to grow, right? And to
Yeah.
change. So I talk about that because your positive growth mindset will allow you to take a negative or bad situation and change it in your mind. Start a mindset change muscle. When you
Right.
look at a pile of debt on your finances and you want to go like crawl in a hole and not deal with it, just keep doing what you're doing, you have to sharpen that muscle. You have to grow that muscle to say, you know what? How can I think about this differently?
Yep.
And how can you practice mental clarity of saying, I'm excited to dive into the details of my debt because that means I'm going to be that much closer to coming up with a solution to get where I want to be. I mean, that sounds very silly and prescriptive, but that's what you need to do. You need to
For
start
sure.
training your mind to think differently, to take negative comments that we have that exterior people give to us and flip the script.
Yep. Yeah.
And the third is kind of this mind, body, spirit, where if you are in those negative issues, take a moment and learn how to ask yourself, what does the mind feel right now? What does my body feel like right now? What does my spirit feel like right now? And that last mental tool allows you to just take yourself out of a situation, get back to a center of more gratefulness to you as a human, and bring mental clarity back into the situation so that you can, move forward. And I find that planning is difficult. So going over these effective mental tools is the first step. They're the first things you pack in your backpack before you go off on this, big mountain hike.
For sure. And I think the big thing is in bringing this for people to understand what we've kind of covered already, because I try to play the character, the negative character, right? 5 years is too long. That's the way they think. It's not too long. Like, think about 5 years ago. What were we watching the other day? My wife and I said something, or there was a commercial or something, and it was like, can't believe 2008 was, 13 years ago, whatever it said, right? And I was all
Yeah, yeah.
trying to count, and I'm like, holy moly, like yesterday was 2008. Like, what the heck? Like, where did time go? 5 years is gonna, but it's how we think. Yes, 5 years from now is so far away, but guess what? You're here from 5 years ago, like, and you're already here. I know it sounds weird, but it's like you're here already. And so you're gonna be there 5 years from now before you know it. And so but I guess what I'm trying to say is that the person who says, nah, it's too late, they don't have that mental fortitude in that sense of, I need to change the way that I think. I can have the life that I want if I start to plan it now and doing those things. So I think that foundation piece that you're talking about is like, hey, it's not plan a 5 year plan and then get the mental state. It's like, we need to do that first. That's the foundation. And I love that you say that that's what we need to do first, because some people, and I'll say a lot of people, but some people aren't ready yet. And that thought process is huge, because there's a lot of people who still have like a victim mindset, right? Everything happens to me. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. It's like, dude, even your verbiage is toxic. Like, even the stuff that you say, and what you say has power. Like, there's a scripture in the Bible that says like that your tongue can be one of your worst weapons. Like, it can hurt not just other people, but yourself. Like, you believe, like it would say there's power in the words of your tongue. Like, there's power behind that. Like, if you can get motivated
Absolutely.
from songs or words or whatever, you can also get discouraged. And I think it happens to a lot of people all the time. So if we're talking negatively and we're thinking negatively, then yeah, you know what? There's a saying that says, whatever you say or you agree with, you're right. Yeah, 5 years is a long time, and I can't do it. You're right. It is, because if that's what you're saying and that's what you believe, then that's it. It will be hard. Congratulations. Like, you
Yeah.
just dug yourself in a hole. So I think it's cool for you to say, hey, I know how things work. You're right. You have had the education and the work experience to say, hey, I know how things work. I know how life works. I know how our mind works. I know how this stuff works. This is how you start. It's the thought process. It's the thinking side of things. I think that's so smart with that. Moving forward, what is something that we can do, or what would you want us to take away? Let me ask that. What is something that we were able to take away from the book? Like, if you take one thing away from this book, this is what I'd want it to be as the author of this book.
That is a great question. Let's see. Kind of have two things. So let me
Mhm.
narrow it
You
down to
can you
one
can do
thing.
2. We're not gonna throw tomatoes at you if you got 2, and so no, you're
No.
good.
Well, I'll do it one thing to funnel to the true thing, which is, and it's really kind of refining and remembering what we said, that you need to look at life by focusing on mental strength, mental tools, fundamentally starting there. Then you can look at, a plan technique, whether it's my
Mhm.
plan technique or somebody else's plan technique. Of course, I like mine, but, it doesn't matter. Just come up with a planning technique that works for you and your type of person, and then follow up with the execution habits. So that's like those 3 steps are this kind of one thing I want people to know
Yeah,
is
yeah.
mental tools, find a technique to get there. I don't know if anybody's kind of heard this. People always say it's not the tool, it's the process, right? It's
Mhm.
like people argue about software tools and work that they're doing, and it's not about the tool, it's about the process. So it doesn't matter what the planning technique is, what the tool is. It's that you need to do the planning activity.
Right.
And that's kind of this one thing that I would say.
Hmm.
Or the last one where we haven't really actually talked a lot about, this whole daily execution habits. That's where I would say if I had to then funnel to a one thing to do for people, since we've already talked a lot about mental tools and a bit of, 5-year planning, I'd say if you decide that you know what you want to do and you decide you want to have mental clarity, you decide you've already done some planning, the one thing you need to remember to be truly successful is to have discipline, which nobody wants to hear. Like, I'm sorry to be
Yeah.
the bearer of the one thing no one wants to hear, but come up with ways that excite you to have discipline. For me, I have a piece of paper on the door of my bedroom, and every single day I wake up and I see that piece of paper and it has, 3 major goals on it. I'm reminded every day that that is what I'm striving for. Put it
Yeah.
in the mirror in the bathroom, put it on your nightstand, put it somewhere, put it in your notebook. I'm all big on opening my notebook and seeing my vision board and, having affirmations. But you have to figure out ways to remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. That comes from your mental tools. What plan you decided to do, what are those goals that you picked out of your plan? And then have execution techniques to have the discipline to keep going. Otherwise, what's going to happen is what you said earlier, which is 5 years is going to just be here. So focus on a disciplined approach to look at your plan, but make it fun in the
For
best way
s-
you can. Make it, maybe you need to
for
look at
sure.
star sticky notes. I don't know, and like put them on the wall. So yeah,
I think it's like Zig Ziglar and a lot of personal development, great speakers, Jim Rohn and his mentor. I'm trying to think of his mentor's name, Mr. Shelf. He called is his name, and they're always talking about like write the 3 things that you want and put in your pocket. I had 3 goals that I have put in my pocket, and you have a lot of people write it down in vision boards and stuff, and people are like, that doesn't work. Well, one, it is not going to work for you because you said already because you have that negative thought process. It's not going to work. But I
mental
think
tools.
yes, but the power behind it is, and I forget what the effect is called. There's a psychological effect that happens where somebody says, "Oh, I really like we were talking about this the other day. My son's getting to the age of driving, right? And he's like, I really like the new Ford Broncos. Those are really nice." And he's like, "Oh, those black ones are clean. Look at the white one." And all of a sudden, we start to see Ford Broncos everywhere. And it's a thing of like you want it, you're thinking about it, maybe you write it down or you have a picture of it or whatever you do, but you start to see, and specifically when you buy it, when you have it, you start to see them everywhere, and then you start to make the thing like everyone has the same car that I have or that I want. But there's that effect
Right.
that when you see it, right, all of a sudden it's almost like people that say and think, which I'm a little bit of a believer of, like your phone's always listening to you, right? You can talk about cruises, and all of a sudden on your phone, the ads are like for cruises and cruising. And there's a cruise commercial on TV, and you're like, what the heck? Our devices are listening to us. But that's the effect of stuff. Like if I have it written down and I say this is going to be my plan, and this is like you said, every day you walk up and you see these 3 things, you have more of a connection with it, and you start to work harder at it. You're reminded about it every day. I think it's so powerful to be able to do that with from little things to small things, from a goal that you have for this week. If we go and write things down as we need it, like from the kitchen, like I need ketchup, write that down. And then you have this running list right on the refrigerator on the counter of what to do. It's like it's kind of what you're doing already, right? But you're doing it with something that's just as important, your life, right?
Absolutely. And, you earlier we talked about kind of 1-year goals or, resolutions kind of falling off and why I don't talk about 1-year goals. I talk about the quarterly goals. And those are because I prescribe a quarterly check-in. We just
Mm,
talked about putting the 3 goals up on the wall and, having it in your pocket and looking at it. But it goes back to every piece of this summit method is aligned to help you drive for success. And one of those is check in every 3 months, do an actual check in, open your plan, look at your plan, look at the details.
right,
You don't have to look at the details of the plan every single day. I
right.
mean, you could, but you don't need to. That's why you have your little pocket reference. That's why you have it on the wall. But yeah, every 3 months, you gotta go in there, be disciplined, and you be excited about what you
Yeah.
tried to lay out for yourself.
And some things could change, right? Maybe you reach a goal a lot quicker than what you anticipated, or maybe you get a setback with work or a family family issues that happen, but there's that reassessment that they're that recalibrating, if you will. I did an interview not too long ago, and I don't know if it's gonna air before or after this one, but a woman who climbed a mountain, and she was talking about when she was climbing Everest or one of those, that you get to a certain spot and you can't go no more, and you have to go back down to base camp, get acclimated, figure out how to do it, and then go right back up again. It's like the original plan was to keep on going, but then you had to stop. You had to go back, reassess a day or two later, then you started to climb again. And she's like, when you think about it, you just don't climb the mountain once. You actually probably climb it about 2.5 times, because you're going up and coming back, going up and coming back, and going a little bit further and coming back. And so it's those reassessment stuff. I just love what you've done and how you've packaged it, from the workbook, the book, the summit, the climbing up your mountain of, difficulty, and then but making it easier in these bite-sized pieces. I love it. Before we let you go, two final questions. I'll sum it up into one big large question. What has helped you raise the bar, whether it's a book or a person, a song, a movie? What's helped you raise the bar? And then what can our listeners do to help them raise the bar?
Absolutely. Okay. I want to say it may sound silly, but it's not silly. It's how I raise the bar. Everyone's got something different, right?
Right.
I read The Miracle Morning and
Yeah.
Badass Habits.
Yep.
Totally changed my life. Just full on changed my life. And what I will say is the thing that raised the bar for me was growth mindset. It was
Mhm.
learning to be humble in my learning, that you can always grow new skills, no matter what age you are, no matter what skill level you are, no matter who you think you are. Embrace your mistakes and grow, because that's how you get to the next level. And that wasn't something that I was very good at. It
Mhm.
was really hard for me. I mean, I was going through aerospace, and there's a lot of challenges in the aerospace industry. So I raised the bar once I learned from those amazing authors how to unleash the power of learning and living
Mhm.
a different life, and then deciding I
Yeah.
was going to write a book and share it with others. So it was quite the transition for me. The advice that I would have for listeners to raise the bar is, well, it's really going to depend on where you are in your journey, of
Mm.
course. But in case, you find yourself thinking that maybe you're early on in your journey, you need to take some time and focus on finding your why. I think that starting with mental tools and finding your why is very important, because it will help align you. It'll help you punch into Google Maps and go in the right directory or right direction to where you want to go. And I leverage stop what you're doing today, create 5 minutes, do this actually today. If you're listening, get out a piece of paper, write in the center, what does my ideal life look like? Give yourself 5 minutes on a timer and brainstorm and think of everything that comes to mind when you're thinking of your ideal life, whether it's in the framework of personal growth and finances and career and community. Great. That just helps you think about items, but it can be anything. Give yourself the space and the mental clarity to dream. It doesn't matter if you think it's impossible. Give yourself the time to just think about it.
Mm.
Then look at it. Is anything like really, pop out for you? I want you to do this. Do your 5-minute mind map and pick out one thing, just one thing that maybe stands out more than the others. Or maybe there nothing stands out. So just pick one thing and say, what is one step I could take tomorrow to get myself in that direction?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Maybe the 5-year planning is way too difficult, and it's just there's so much to, wrap your head around. If I give you one thing to leave this call, raise the bar by giving yourself space to think about what you want to do. What is your purpose? Where do you want to go? And do one step tomorrow to go in that direction.
Yeah, so powerful, so powerful. And then the next thing would be those execution things that you were talking about, but you won't know that until you get the book. How can we get the book? How can we connect with you once we're done here?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I have a website. You can go check out my website, www.conqueryoursummit.com. There you can connect with me. You can also get the book, but it's available for sale on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you grab your books. So you should be able to go search there for Conquer Your Summit by Aliki Simone. That's to get the book. And then please head over to your socials, whether I think I'm mostly on Instagram and TikTok
Mhm.
these days. But I follow me at Alakai Simone Books, and we'll connect there. I give kind of quote of the day and, trying to connect more with all of my wonderful readers.
Awesome. Yeah, and all those things will be on the show notes and in the description if it's on YouTube. Thank you so much for meeting with me, Alec. I really appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughtfulness in your creativity of writing the book. I tell other people this, and I feel the same way about you. Thank you for being obedient to that voice in your head that says, "Hey, write that book." I just spoke the other day to a group, and I said, your leadership isn't for you; it's for somebody else. And your ability to write the thoughts that you have and your journey wasn't necessarily for you; it's for those of us that will learn from you in the future and generations to come. So thank you for being obedient and executing on that, because somebody out there definitely needs your message and your words. So thank you for being authentically you.
That was very beautiful. Thank you for saying that. I love that.
All right. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode. Continue to raise that bar and pull yourself up to that next level. But you can't pull yourself up to that next level unless you raise that bar. We'll see you on the next episode.